Doma Sports Talk Worldwide with some news from the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed. Now, heavyweight news, y'all. Heavyweight news. My man Joseph Parker, you know what I'm saying? He only got 2 losses. What do he got? About 29 wins, about 2 losses. Didn't check his record because I always know he only got 2 losses and he's one of the top 5 heavyweights in the world. But he's going to mess with another one that some people would have as the top 5 heavyweight. Definitely about a top 7 or 8, depending on his motivation. And that'll be Andy Ruiz Jr. Andy Ruiz Jr. has lost one time. We know that. Well, no, twice. He's lost to Joseph Parker once, and he's lost to Anthony Joshua. And we all know it's a motivational thing. We know that he wasn't, didn't have all those luxurious things in his life before beating Anthony Joshua. And then he beat Anthony Joshua, and then he just lost his damn mind and got fatter than he already is. But he didn't show up to the fight, and he got outboxed easily. But we all understand that Andy Ruiz Jr., as a motivated fighter, has some quick hands, and he's a good fighter. I think he has a good chin as well, even though he's been rocked a time or two. But I think any of our top heavyweights has been rocked a time or two. Go through them if you want to. Tyson Fury, the very best, has he been rocked a time or two? Dillian White, rocked a time or two. Anthony Joshua, rocked a time or two. And I'm being nice. Deontay Wilder, rocked a time or two. You know what I'm saying? So all of those tops, even Luis the Real King Kong Ortiz, my boy, rocked a time or two. So there's nobody who's at the very top of the game, because you in the heavyweight division, you're going to get rocked a time or two. It's about what you do after you get rocked. Now, Joseph Parker, we do know that Joseph Parker and Luis the Real King Kong Ortiz didn't take that fight against Filip Hrgovic about 2 weeks ago, right? To become the IBF mandatory. It was the IBF eliminator fight. So they were both said they had different injuries, right? We were skeptical about it, even though we rolled with Joe, and we definitely rolled with Luis the Real King Kong Ortiz, right? But you want to be fair. They didn't take that fight. We were talking about, hey, it might not be that lucrative and whatever, but what it would have gave you has been you would have been the IBF eliminator. But a lot of people have an argument, and this is a good one. Hey, it's too much stuff going on with the top. I'm an IBF eliminator. I'm going to still have to wait forever because Usyk and Tyson Fury got to fight, and Usyk still got to fight Anthony Joshua because of a rematch clause. So it would have been 2 years before IBF mandatory get his shot. So I understand that, going for the money, whatever. So Joseph Parker has called out Andy Ruiz Jr. and said, hey, who's up for the Andy Ruiz Jr. rematch fight? And I like certain things about this. What I like about it is I think Joseph Parker is willing to go to the USA to have this fight. It would be good. Go to America, have the fight. Andy Ruiz Jr. has a profile, has a lot of Mexican fans. He's training with Canelo and them and all that old good stuff, which is just the only thing I don't like about him, training with Canelo and them, with Eddie Reynoso, right? But other than that, Andy Ruiz Jr., there's really nothing not to like about Andy Ruiz Jr., right? So, go to America. Joseph Parker, whether we believe it or not, Americans know who the hell that is, right? He trains right in Vegas most of the damn time anyway before he went over to England. So Joseph Parker's familiar with America, and he's fought there a time or two. I think that fight would probably be not huge, but it would be big enough because it's 2 top 10 heavyweights and everybody damn know it. It's good. Here's something that I think is going to be a problem, right? I personally think that Andy Ruiz Jr. probably needs another fight, right, before that fight. Because of the simple fact, his last showing was against your boy Chris Arreola. And, he looked okay against Arreola, but he didn't look great. And before that, it was the Fat Show against Anthony Joshua. So I'm not sure if people are really thinking Andy Ruiz Jr. is about to be heavyweight champion of the world again. Right? Matter of fact, quiet as a kid, ain't nobody probably thinking that about Joseph Parker Jr. either. Joseph Parker, if he's going to be heavyweight champion again, except for people like me. Everybody don't believe that either. So it's a fight between 2 people who probably no one think is going to be heavyweight champion again. But that they could be, wrong here. I just think maybe Andy Ruiz Jr. should probably have one more fight before. But okay, even if they fight now, here's my issue. Sometimes, you beat a very good fighter and you don't get no credit for it. Most of the times when that happens, it's a Negro League fighter. But it can happen to other people too, right? And I just have a feeling if Joseph Parker were to go in here and beat Andy Ruiz Jr., would he get the credit? If people after that fight, if people gonna say, man, you got to have a title shot, right? If Joseph Parker beats Louis Real King Kong Ortiz, they'll say that. If Dillian White beat Ortiz, they would say, damn right, you got to get the title shot. I'm not sure that's going to happen. That's the problem. I've seen that happen with a lot of fighters. When, before the fight, hey, you need to fight this guy, man. Then they fight him and beat him easily, and then people come up with stuff. Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao, right? Oh, you scared of Pacquiao? Pacquiao throws punches and bunches, and he's scared of it. Pacquiao's movement, he got neutralized, and they called the fight boring. Right? That's what happens. Terrence Crawford had to fight Sean Porter. He wasn't, man, Sean Porter was his friend almost. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't no title. He was trying to fight Spence instead of Porter. But since Spence goes somewhere else and do what he's going to do, then everybody's like, hey, you need to fight Porter. And Porter don't even have a belt. My man is trying to become undisputed at welterweight. Didn't have a belt. But Sean Porter, we'll see how you do against Sean Porter. He stopped Sean Porter. First guy that does it. And they're still acting like Sean Porter was on his last leg, even though he quit after that. But they act like that fight wasn't, he didn't do something. Same thing happened to Kell Brook when it comes to Terrence Crawford. Believe it or not, people were really scared when he was going to fight to the build up to Kell Brook when it comes to Terrence Crawford. After he beat him like no one else beat Kell Brook, then we act like Kell Brook was nothing. So I've seen that happen. I'm just Terrence Crawford, hits me first. But that happens a lot, and this could probably happen to either one of these guys. But I think mostly Joseph Parker probably won't get the credit if he were to beat Andy Ruiz Jr. But let's be real about this fight. Andy Ruiz Jr. and Joseph Parker in New Zealand was a very, very close fight. Home court advantage. You know what I'm saying? For Joseph Parker. So Joseph Parker, if he's willing to go over there and beat him up, or at least fight him in America, that's a heavyweight dust-up that I think we all would definitely watch. I know I would tune into it. I like both of the guys, right? But if I had to choose one, I roll with Joe even more than Andy Ruiz Jr., right? So I would be going for Joseph Parker, but I wouldn't be, against Andy Ruiz Jr., not unless he starts talking like Canelo and Ryan Garcia and Eddie Reynoso, right? If I hear him start talking like that, which I hope not, we represent everything. Come on, bro, L.A., keep it cool. Don't be like them. Stay Andy Ruiz Jr. that we know and love, the humble guy that's with the faster hands than people think, and I'm going to roll with him, right? Amigo. You know what I'm saying? But, hopefully he doesn't change. So I like both of these guys. Let's see if it happens. We'll talk about more. It's probably some more that's happened since I read this article. But at the end of the day, Joseph Parker versus Andy Ruiz Jr. on American soil is definitely not a bad fight. What you think? Doma Sports Talk Worldwide. And I'm up out of here, y'all.